Numerous sources of oil leakage can result in catastrophic engine failure if the levels fall too low. To promptly fix the issue, you should be aware of the signs of an oil pan gasket leak. We go over the most common indicators that an oil pan gasket is leaking in this video. Along with estimating the typical cost of gasket replacement, we also provide you with instructions on how to inspect the oil pan gasket. It's the Car Problems YouTube channel. Subscribe and let's get started. Oil puddle or stain. A puddle or stain beneath the vehicle is a dead giveaway that oil is leaking. But you need to figure out what's causing this oil drip because it could be coming from almost anywhere. An oil puddle or stain does not always indicate a problem with the oil pan gasket. We go into more detail later on how to solve this. A leak is caused by a defective oil pan gasket because the rubber begins to degrade. The engine's excessive heat makes this rubber vulnerable to damage. The fluid starts to seep through instead of being able to contain the oil. The amount of oil leaking increases in proportion to the extent of the damage. Oil warning light. Your vehicle may turn on the oil warning light when the oil levels drop sufficiently. Since most don't notice a tiny drop, this light indicates a significant oil loss. Since the oil levels are probably at the critical point, you should actually stop driving right away when this light appears. Fortunately, the majority of oil pan gasket leaks will be significant enough to cause this issue right away. However, it might get this bad over time, endangering your engine. Oil-coated undercarriage. A significant oil pan gasket leak will result in a spray that covers the undercarriage. This phenomenon, called blowback, is brought on by the wind when driving at higher speeds. Any oil from the damaged oil pan gasket is swept toward the back by the air rushes beneath the car. The severity of the oil leak determines the extent of the oil spread. If it's severe, you might notice oil splashed almost everywhere, which would make it harder to pinpoint its source. One of the primary causes of the potent smell we discussed is this oil coating. Because of the high temperatures, it falls onto the exhaust and begins to burn. Low oil level. The oil pan gasket leak may be so tiny that it is hardly perceptible. The oil level most likely doesn't drop quickly if that's the case. Larger leaks, however, will cause oil levels to drop. Until the issue is fixed, you might have to keep topping off the engine. Burning oil smell. You might smell burning oil if the oil pan gasket is leaking. This will smell more like fresh oil that is being heated to higher temperatures and burning off than the smell of engine oil burning through consumption. Because it is blown back while driving, oil that leaks from the gasket frequently ends up on the hot exhaust components. A car fire is also a real possibility because some exhaust components can get as hot as 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. You don't want to take that chance. The smell of burning oil will intensify as the leak grows. If it gets into the cabin, it can get so bad that it makes you feel ill while you're driving. How do you inspect an oil pan gasket? When there is a lot of blowback happening while driving, it can be very challenging to see where oil is leaking from underneath a car. You want to do a visual inspection to find the cause. Placing a piece of cardboard underneath the car to observe where the drip is coming from is frequently the first step. When the car is not moving, it might not be dripping, so it might not drip onto the cardboard. We advise using a specific degreaser to clean the engine and oil pan if that doesn't help you locate it. Make sure there is no oil visible by thoroughly cleaning the undercarriage. You can locate the leak by following the trail of oil back to the highest point once it starts to appear. The best course of action is to consult a mechanic if these procedures are unable to identify the cause of the oil leak. To identify the source of the leak, a specialist might employ UV light or pressure testing. The average cost to professionally replace the oil pan gasket is between $400 and $600. The most costly component is labor, which can cost anywhere from $200 to $400. If you have the necessary skills, fixing it yourself can be less expensive because the parts might only cost $100 to $200. The type of vehicle you drive affects costs. The labor costs will be higher because some are more difficult to replace than others. The total cost will also vary depending on the labor rates in your area. You might be able to replace the oil pan gasket yourself if you're used to doing your own auto repairs and maintenance. Some steps are similar to changing the oil, but there is an extra layer of difficulty because you have to drop the pan and install a new gasket. Certain engines have much more difficult access points to the oil pan, so those tasks might not be suitable for the inexperienced. You will need the new parts, a wrench, sockets, rags, the proper sealant, the right kind and quantity of motor oil to refill the system, and a new oil filter if you decide to do it yourself. Maintaining the car is the best defense against having to replace the oil pan gasket. You can prevent the gasket from failing too soon by keeping it lubricated and in good condition with routine oil changes.